Hello, chat. How are you? How was your week? Did you guys know the Dune movie is coming out? I'm so excited for that. Oh my god. It's such a good universe. What's up, Furzda? Hey, Furzda, nice of you to join. King Didi. Hey, Didi. Patrick Musselman. What's up, Bigfoot? Nice of you to join. Hey, Nikki. Glad you're here. Hey, Losh. Glad you could join. Trenton Quarantino. What's up? What's up? Hey, Streety McMeady. Still doing Sundays? Still doing Sundays. This is episode 69. Wow. I think this is the second to the last chapter. So, you hope you can catch Dune in the theaters? Yeah. That's such a. I read the book a long time ago, and yeah, it's always stuck in my mind. It's such a good story. I can't wait for to see it on the big screen. Um, they had a series, right? Was it a series or a movie like a long time ago? Let's see. Whoa, Trenton, Tia, thanks so much for the super chat. I really appreciate it. What's up, Katie? How's it going? Wait, hold on. Dune. Was there a older movie? Dune movie. Dune 2000. Oh, it was a mini series. Yeah. No, wait, hold on. Not Dune 2000. Well, I don't remember, but there was an old Dune miniseries. I don't think it was that good. So I hope this new one is better. It's such a great story. David Lynch made it. Yeah, David Lynch. It was 1984. Oh my god, that was a long time ago. Yeah, I think I watched that. I watched the series. I don't remember liking it that much though. So I'm excited for the new movie. The thing with the Dune is that it's really cerebral. Like you get into the head of the main character a lot, and you get to hear his thoughts and stuff in the book. But I'm curious how they're gonna do that in the film because you can't really. I don't know how it's gonna translate to the into the big screen, right? So I hope they do a good job with it. Wasn't there a mini series? Dune mini series. Yeah, there was. I don't think I watched this one. I might have watched the David Lynch one, but not this one. Dune 1984. Let's see. Oh wait, I might have watched the other one then. Okay, I don't think I watched this one. This was the 1984, so I might have watched the mini series. Yeah. Anyways, I think that the director for this new movie is like a really big Dune fan. So, um, am I familiar with Jodorowsky's Dune? Wasn't that the movie that Jodorowsky tried to make, and then but it never got made because there are like a bunch of problems in the back end or something? Yeah, there's a lot of internal narration. There's a lot of internal talk. Like You get to see the way he thinks and stuff like that. So it's very philosophical. What's up, Batman versus Naruto? All right. Today's chapter is it's I think it's long, so let's get started. Before we do that, look what I have. Choco pie. Eh? Eh? All right, let's look. Ooh. Okay. I hate individually wrapped foods. It seems so wasteful to me. Like I don't need you to wrap every single one. You're gonna make me open every single pie here. This looks like moon pie. Have you guys ever had moon pie? Ooh. I don't think it's marshmallow though. Hmm. Hmm. So it's like breaded. So it's like chocolate covered, some kind of breaded dough with cream in the middle. Not bad. Nothing to write home about though. I think I'm giving that a 6 out of 10. Yeah. It's like moon pie, but instead of marshmallow, it's like just some cream. Dum, 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 dum. Do I like banana moon pies? I hate banana. I hate the taste of banana. I can't eat it. It tastes disgusting to me. Yeah. All right. So, what happened last time? Last time, our hero Ling Hu and Ying Ying, they go to Huashan because they heard news of a meeting that was happening there. Okay, but then when they got there, Huashan was empty. Right? Huashan is empty. Now they're like, where the hell did everybody go? So they go up to the cliff of contemplation and they see the cave that Ling Hu Chong found a long time ago. They see that the cave is full of people. Okay, and it turns out there were seniors from all the sword schools there, except for people from Huashan and Hangshan, right? And Ling Hu's own Hangshan. But people from the other three schools are all in there, studying the martial arts on the cave wall. So it seems like Yue Chun invited them there, but he isn't there. He isn't actually there, but everyone seems that he invited all these seniors there to study these martial arts on the wall. But then suddenly, the cave entrance is closed, right? Someone closes the cave entrance. I think they put a gigantic rock in there at the entrance. And everyone panics, and then all the torches, in the confusion, all of the torches are put out. And then it turns out that Zhuo Langchan is there. He's there with Lin Pingzhi and 15 men. The 15 men that Ling Hu Chong blinded a long time ago, they're also there. Okay, these people are all blind. So since they're all blind, they're used to being blind, right? So they're at an advantage in the darkness, right? So they just kill everyone in the cave, right? All these seniors, they kill everyone in the cave. And then only Ling Hu Chong and Ying Ying are left, right? And then, but these two, they're losing because they can't see anything, right? But suddenly some faint dots of light appear in the darkness, enough for Ling Hu Chong to see, right? And that was enough for him to just beat both of them, right? Or beat everyone, right? So I think he kills all of the 15 blind men, and he kills Zhuo Langchan, right? Zhuo Langchan dies. And then he defeats Lin Pingzhi, and then he cuts the tendons of Lin Pingzhi's left arm. All right. Yeah, so he wins. Turns out, what were those faint dots of light? I don't think we figured it out last chapter. So it says that like someone cut open a human bone that was lying there, and apparently the bone has phosphorus, so it lit up the darkness, because I guess phosphorus lights up in the darkness. I don't know, but that was where the light came from. Yeah, so he wins, and then they exit the cave, and that's it. That's what happened. They're magic. The bones are magic. Dum, 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 dum. From a wand? I don't think they're magic. Oh yeah. So did anyone figure it out? Like, does phosphorus light up in the darkness? Oh, let's look it up. Phosphorus in bone glow. Oh my god, it's right. Wait, hold on. Check this out. Oh, I think he's scientifically right. The book is scientifically correct. Where is it? Phosphorus belongs to the nitrogen family and is a... Because it is highly reactive, phosphorus in its elementary forms exists in the following two types: the white phosphorus and red phosphorus. White phosphorus is less stable and highly reactive, and on coming in contact with the oxygen present in the air, results in the formation of fumes, which shows the glowing effects in the dark. So the bones glow in the dark because white phosphorus undergoes slow combustion in contact with the air. Okay. Oh, so it's scientifically correct. So I guess if you cut open bone, it's gonna glow for some time. Well, I didn't know that. What the heck? Okay. So let that be a lesson, right? When you're in the dark, find a piece of bone and then cut it open. If you don't have a torch. All right, we ready? All right, chapter 39, No Treaty. All right. They walked out of the cave and suddenly saw a black shape moving on top of their heads. It looked like something that had fallen down on them. It looked like something had fallen down on them. Ling Huchong and Ying Ying simultaneously dodged it. But who could have thought the object dropping was a large fish net, and it trapped the two of them. Startled, they quickly drew their swords to cut the net, but after slashing for a few times, the net was unexpectedly untouched. At this time, another fish net was thrown from above, covering both of them. The person above the cave leapt down with a rope in his hand, tightening the net. Master! The word escaped from Ling Huchong's mouth. That person really was Yue Buchun. The net got tighter and tighter as Yue Buchun pulled on the rope. Ling Huchong and Ying Ying were just like a couple of big fishes being entangled inside a net. They were able to struggle in the beginning, but at the end, they couldn't even move. Frightened, Ying Ying didn't know what to do. She took a glance and saw that Ling Huchong was smiling, looking very relaxed. She thought, has he thought of a way to escape? Yue Buchun had a fierce-looking smile on his face. Wait, hold on. He has a little bit of a high voice, right? Little traitor, you were complacent coming out of the cave. Didn't expect trouble out here, did you? It's not trouble. When someone's going to die, dying with his wife is the happiest thing, Ling Hucheng replied nonchalantly. Ying Ying understood. His face was looking happy because he would be able to die together with her. Her fear disappeared, replaced with a wave of happiness. Ling Hucheng continued, If you kill both of us like this, then you wouldn't be able to separate us. Little traitor, Yue Buchun indignantly said. Death is imminent, and you're still boasting? He then wrapped the rope around them for a few times, bunching them up tightly. This fishnet of yours, you got it from old man, didn't you? Ling Hucheng said. You treat me really well. You know that we don't want to be apart, so you wrapped the two of us, husband and wife, very tightly, just like this. You raised me since I was little, and you know my heart really well. In this world, you're my only friend, Mr. Yue. He was saying all these smart aleck comments, hoping to drag the time out while looking for some way to get out of this situation. Another hope of his was that Feng Qingyang would suddenly appear to rescue them. Yue Buchun sneered, little traitor. You hope to talk nonsense since you were little, and your temperament still haven't changed until now. I should cut off your tongue first, to save you from losing your tongue in hell when you die. His left leg flew up and kicked Ling Hucheng on his waist, sealing his mute acupoint and shutting Ling Hucheng up. Young Lady Ren, Yue Buchun continued. Who do you want me to kill first, him or you? What's the difference? Ying Ying replied. I only have 3 medicines for the divine 3-brain corpse pill on my body. Yue Buchun's face changed color when he heard this. Ever since he was forced by Ying Ying to swallow the divine 3-brain corpse pill, he had been thinking day and night on how to obtain the medicine. He had been waiting for a long time for this opportunity. The two of them had just escaped danger, happily going out of the cave, without taking care to protect themselves, when suddenly this metal fishnet trapped them. His original idea was to kill Ling Hucheng and Ying Ying first, before searching her body for the medicine. But when he heard her saying there was only 3 medicines on her body, he realized he would only be able to live for 3 more years after killing them. Moreover, after 3 years had passed, the insect would enter his brain and make him insane and die in unbearable pain. This matter was really difficult for him to settle. Even though his inner energy and martial art were marvelous, he couldn't stop both of his hands from trembling. All right, let's make a deal, Yue Buchun said. Tell me how to make the medicine, and I'll spare both of your lives. Ying Ying laughed and indifferently said, Even though I'm still young, I know Gentleman's Sword, Mr. Yue's personality. If your words are to be believed, then your nickname wouldn't be Gentleman's Sword. You've learned nothing by being with Ling Hucheng, Yue Buchun said. All you've learned is how to talk a lot. You're not willing to say how to make the medicine? Of course not, Ying Ying answered. In 3 years' time, Chonglan and I will be waiting at the death's door to welcome you. At that time, you won't have your 5 senses anymore, and your whole face will be ruined. I wonder if we'll still be able to recognize you. Yue Buchun felt a wave of coldness at his back. He understood her meaning of won't have your 5 senses, and your whole face will be ruined, was a reference to the time when the poison would come out. If his entire body weren't rotten by that time, then he would destroy his own face through madness. His whole body shivered thinking about it. Even if my whole face will be ruined, yours will be ruined 3 years earlier than mine, Yue Buchun indignantly said. I won't kill you too. I'll only cut off your ears and nose, and on your lovely white snow face, I'm going to give you 18 slashes. We'll see then how much love, how much affection your Chonglang has, whether he'll love a freak ugly weirdo. With a hiss, he drew his long sword out. Ying Ying gasped in surprise. She wasn't afraid of death, but if Yue Buchun were to ruin her face, to make it look like a demon, and let Ling Huchang look at her, it was even worse than death. Even though Ling Huchang's mute acupoint was sealed, he was still able to move his hands and feet. He knew what Ying Ying was thinking, so he bumped her with his elbow, extended 2 fingers from his right hand, and pierced them towards his eyes. Ying Ying again cried out, and she hurriedly called out, "Brother Chong, don't!" Yue Buchun didn't really mean to ruin Ying Ying's face. He was only threatening her to make her tell him the prescription for the medicine. If Ling Huchang destroyed both his eyes, then his plan would be useless. His left hand shot out, unbelievably quick, and grabbed Ling Huchang's right wrist through the fishnet. "Stop!" Yue Buchun shouted. As their skins connected, Yue Buchun immediately felt his internal energy flowing out. "Aiyo!" Yue Buchun called out. In a hurry, he tried to get away, but it was like his palm was glued to Ling Huchang's wrist. Ling Huchang turned his hand around, grabbing Yue Buchun's palm. Okay, so he's sucking his energy now. Yue Buchun now felt his inner energy rushing out even faster. He was greatly startled. With the long sword in his right hand, he quickly chopped it at Ling Huchang's body. Ling Huchang's hand shook and dragged his body back, causing the sword to slash at the ground. Yue Buchun's inner energy was still flowing out. As he tried to slash his sword a second time, he felt weak and powerless, that he practically couldn't even lift his own arm. Exerting his energy, he tried to lift his sword. With the sword aiming at the point between Ling Huchang's eyes and his arm and the longsword unceasingly quivering, he slowly pierced it forward. Ying Ying was alarmed, and she wanted to use her finger to flick Yue Buchun's sword away, but both her arms were pressed under Ling Huchang's body, and the fishnet was tightly wrapped around her body. She exerted her strength to struggle, but she couldn't free her hands. Ling Huchang's left arm was also being trapped under Ying Ying's body, so he also couldn't use it. He saw the sword point slowly stabbing forward. He thought, "I killed Zhu Langchan and injured Lin Pingzhi with this kind of slow sword. This time, Master is also going to use this method to kill me. What a really quick retribution." Yue Buchun felt his inner energy was quickly running out, but the sword point was only a few inches away from Ling Huchang's eyebrow. He was both happy and anxious. "You, what are you doing?" a sharp female voice cried out from behind. "Take your sword away." Sound of footsteps were heard as someone drew near. Yue Buchun saw his sword only had to go a few more inches, then he'd be able to kill Ling Huchang. At this time, his life was hanging by a thread, so how could he agree to just give up? Staking all his remaining energy, his sword finally reached Ling Huchang's forehead. It was at this time when he suddenly felt something cold at the back of his body. A long sword had been pierced from his back all the way through to the front of his chest. "Big brother Ling Hu, are you all right?" A female voice cried out. She was Yi Lin. The blood in Ling Huchang's chest was bubbling up, and he couldn't reply her. "Little Martial's sister, Big brother Ling Hu is all right," Ying Ying told her. "That's very good," Yi Lin happily said. She was suddenly startled and frighteningly cried, "It's Mr. Yue. I killed him." "That's right," Ying Ying said. "Congratulations for taking revenge on your master's murderer. Can you untie the fishnet, please? Let me get out." Yes, Yi Lin replied. She saw Yue Buchun was prostrated on the ground with blood spouting out from the sword wound. Her whole body turned to jelly, and in a quivering voice she asked, I killed him?" She wanted to grab the rope to release it, but both her hands were trembling, and she had no power in them. She was unable to release them. "Little nun," a voice suddenly called out from the left. "You killed the honorable chief. I'll teach you today that you can't run away from justice. An old man wearing a yellow gown came forward, carrying a naked sword. This person was Lao de Noir. Ay yo, Ling Huchang cried out. Little martial sister, quickly, use your sword to fight, Ying Ying shouted. He died. Did you catch that? So Yue Buchun just died, killed by Yi Lin, right? She was supposed to kill him anyways, so looks like she caught him at the right moment. Does that deserve some bells? I think it does. There goes the master. Yilin was stupefied for a moment before she drew the sword out of Yue Buchun's body. Lao de Noir attacked with 3 quick strokes, and Yilin blocked all 3 attacks. The third attack flitted near her left shoulder and drew blood. Lao de Noir's sword was getting faster and faster, with some of the movements from the evil resisting sword art. But since he had not learned it too deeply, he only had the movement, while his speed was way below that of Lin Pingzhi. Originally, Lao de Noir was already experienced, and his sword art came from Songshan and Huashan schools. It was only recently that he learned the evil resisting sword art, so Yilin was originally not his match. You think it deserves an applause? Oh, I don't have applause. I have this for his death. However, as Yihu and Yiqing was hoping that Yilin would become the Hangshan's headmaster in the future, they had been supervising her practicing the Hangshan sword art that Ling Huchang gave them. So her martial art had improved. Also, because Lao de Noir's evil resisting sword art was not yet perfected, and he wanted to try it out, their movements came out in between the Songshan and Huashan schools' sword arts that he was using. His sword movements became mixed and caused his original art to be weaker. In the beginning, when Yilin saw the fast sword art from her enemy, she panicked, and the third attack injured her left shoulder. But she thought if she lost, then Ling Huchang and Ying Ying would not escape from danger as well, and they were bound to meet disaster. She was thinking that if he was going to kill big brother Ling Hu, then it was better if she was killed first. Without any fear of dying, she didn't think of preserving herself and just kept on attacking with all her moves. When Lao de Noir was confronted with her staking life fighting method, he couldn't win against her for the moment. He swore, "Little nun, your mother real good." Wait, you F your mother real good? Oh my god. He sure knows how to insult people. Little nun, you F your mother real good. Ying Ying saw Yilin's spirit was raised, and she was fighting with all her might. But after a long time, she was still bound to lose. She rolled on the ground, freeing her left arm and unsealing Ling Huchang's acupoint. She put her hand inside her bosom and took out her short sword. Lao de Noir, Ling Huchang cried out. What's that behind you? Lao de Noir was an experienced person, and he wouldn't fall for Ling Huchang's trick by turning around to have a look and giving his enemy an opportunity to attack him. He ignored Ling Huchang and increased the ferocity of his attack. Ying Ying held her short sword, wanting to toss it out from the fish net, but Yilin was fighting very closely with Lao de Noir. If her toss was slightly off, then it might hit her. She hesitated and didn't throw her sword out. Suddenly, Yilin cried out. Her left shoulder again had been hit. The first time she got hit, the injury was light, but this time the wound was a few inches deep. The grass around the area was splashed with her blood. Monkey! Monkey! Ah! This is Six Brothers Monkey! Ling Huchang called out. Good monkey! Quickly, bite him! This is the traitor who killed your master! In order to steal Yue Buchun's Violet Twilight secret manual, Lao Dunhua killed Lu Dayou, who was the sixth disciple of Huashan. Lu Dayou had a small monkey, which usually sat on his shoulder. After he died, the monkey had gone somewhere. At this time, he suddenly heard Ling Huchang's shout and couldn't help feeling scared. If this animal jumps on me and bites me, then my movements will be restricted. So he leaned to one side and turned around to slash his sword. But how could there be a monkey behind his back? At this time, Ying Ying tossed her sword towards the back of his neck. Lao Dunhua stooped down and the short sword flew above. Suddenly, he felt a rope tighten around his left ankle. The rope was tugged backwards and he fell face forward. When Ling Huchang saw Lao Dunhua stoop down to avoid the sword, it presented a very good opportunity. He quickly undid the rope tying the fishnet and sent the rope coiling around his left ankle and pulled it. "Kill him! Kill him!" Ling Huchang and Ying Ying called out. Yilin chopped her sword down on Lao Dunhua's neck, but she was a compassionate person, and she was also timid. When she first killed Yue Buchun, she did it to save Ling Huchang. With her being anxious, she quickly wielded her sword and didn't realize she was actually going to kill a person. When her sword was about to slash Lao Dunhua's neck, her heart became soft. Her sword leaned to a side and slashed his right shoulder instead. Lao Dunhua's collarbone was broken and his sword dropped from his hand. He was afraid Yilin's second sword would slash down again, so he endured the pain to get up and struggled to be free of the rope. He then escaped down from the cliff. That's way worse than your granny? No, that's way better than your granny. That was a way better insult. Suddenly, two people came up from around the mountain. The female shouted, "Hey, was it you who scolded my daughter just then?" It was Yilin's mother who was at the hanging temple, pretending to be the mute granny. Lao Dunhua did a flying kick to kick her away. The granny leaned to one side to avoid it and gave him a mighty slap on the cheek. "You scolded her! You fuck your mother real good," she shouted. "I'm her mother. You dare to scold me?" Oh shit. Her mother is actually there. "Stop him! Stop him!" Ling Huchang cried out. "Don't let him get away!" The granny originally wanted to hit down on Lao Dunhua's head, but hearing Ling Huchang's shout, she shouted, "Little rascal, I'm going to let him go." She leaned to one side and gave Lao Dunhua a kick on his buttocks. Lao Dunhua felt like he had received a pardon from heaven as he sprinted down the cliff. There was a person behind that granny who was actually Monk No Commandment. He chuckled and said, "What are you playing at? Why are you playing inside the net?" "Dad," Yilin said, "undo the fishnet. Let big brother Ling Hu and young lady run out." "I haven't settled my debt with this little bastard yet," that granny said with a calm face. "You can't let him go." Ling Huchang laughed loudly, then shouted, "Once the couple gets together, you throw the matchmaker out. You, husband and wife, already has a reunion now. Why aren't you thanking the matchmaker?" The granny gave him a kick and shouted, "I thank you with a kick." "Peach Valley 6 fairies," Ling Huchang laughingly called out. "Quickly, help me." The granny was very afraid of the Peach Valley 6 fairies, so she quickly turned her head around. Ling Huchang hastily extended his hand out of the fishnet and undid the knot and let Ying Ying out. But he had not managed to go out yet when the granny shouted, "You can't go out." "If I can't get out, then I'll stay in here," Ling Huchang laughingly replied. Inside this fishnet, there's no difference between heaven and earth. A gentleman can bend and straighten, bend to enter the net, and straighten to get out of the net. What to do? I, Ling Huchang. As he was spouting nonsense, his eyes caught sight of Yue Buchun's body prostrated on the ground. The smile on his face disappeared, and it was suddenly replaced with tears in his eyes. His tears flowed down his cheeks. The granny was still angry, and as she shouted, "Little bastard, if I don't beat you up till you're black and blue, then I won't be satisfied." Her left palm shot out, wanting to slap Ling Huchang's right cheek. "Mom!" Yilin cried out. Don't! Ling Huchang raised his right hand, and he was already holding a longsword. Actually, when he was lost in thought, looking at Yue Buchun's corpse, Ying Ying put the sword in his hand. He pointed the sword and stabbed it at the granny's right shoulder's acupoint, forcing her to retreat a step. The granny got even angrier. Her body moved like the wind, her palm hacking, her elbow striking, her leg sweeping. In just a short time, she had attacked with 7 to 8 moves. Ling Huchang was still inside the fish net, and he just pointed his sword as he wished. Each stab was aimed at the granny's fatal acupoint, but every time the sword point was about to reach her body, he immediately withdrew it. This Dugu 9 sword was unmatched in this world. If Ling Huchang wasn't giving way, then that granny would have died 7 to 8 times already. After several more moves, the granny knew his martial art was much too high compared to hers. With a long sigh, she stopped attacking, and she looked very upset. "Dear," Monk No Commandment pleaded, "we're all good friends. Why do you need to be angry for?" "Who asked you to speak?" the granny angrily replied. There was no one to vent her anger, so she turned to him. Ling Huchang put his sword down and came out of the fish net. "You want to hit me to vent your anger? I'll let you do it," Ling Huchang laughingly said. That granny raised her palm and slapped him heavily. Ling Huchang cried out as he didn't dodge the hit. "Well, why didn't you dodge?" the granny angrily asked. "I can't dodge it," Ling Huchang replied. "How do I do that?" The granny spat. She knew in her heart he was considering Yilin, so he let her hit him. Her left palm was already raised, but she didn't hit him. Ying Ying pulled on Yilin's hand and said, "A little martial sister, lucky you came here to rescue us. How did you come here?" "I was with the other martial sister," Yilin narrated. "We were all," she pointed at Yue Buchun's corpse, "captured by his people. Me and 3 other martial sisters were being locked up in a cave. Just then, Dad and Mom rescued me. Dad, Mom, and I also cannot have no commandment, and 3 martial sisters. We all separately went around rescuing the other martial sisters. I was walking below the cliff when I heard people talking on top. The voice sounded like Big Brother Ling Hu's, so I quickly went up to have a look. He and I went around everywhere, but we didn't find anyone," Ying Ying said. "So you were actually being held inside a cave." Just then that old bastard wearing the yellow gown is a bad person, Ling Huchang said. "You let him go, but I can't accept that." He picked up a long sword from the ground and said, "Let's chase after him." The party of 5 went down the cliff of repentance. They had not walked for too long when they saw Tianbo Guang with 7 Hengshan disciples climbing out of a valley. Yi Qing was one of them. They were really happy to meet each other. Ling Huchang thought, "There's no one in this world who knows about the surroundings in Huashan better than me. I didn't know there was another cave below that valley, but Tianbo Guang is an outsider, and he knows of it? And he knows of it? How strange." He pulled on Tianbo Guang's sleeve, and the 2 of them walked behind the party. "Brother Tian," Ling Huchang said, "there's another cave below that valley. I didn't know about it before, but you knew about it. I really admire you." Tianbo Guang smiled. "There's nothing strange about that." "Ah, that's right," Ling Huchang said. "You must have captured a Huashan disciple and interrogated him." "I didn't," Tianbo Guang replied. "Then how did you find out? Can you tell me?" Ling Huchang asked. Tianbo Guang blushed and smiled. This matter is not comfortable to talk about. It's better not to speak of it." Ling Huchang was even more curious, and he just had to ask about it. "You and I are loafers in Jianghu. What's there that's so uncomfortable to talk about?" Ling Huchang said. "Quickly, say it." Uh, After I say it," Tianbo Guang pleaded. "Headmaster Ling Hu, please don't blame me." You've rescued many martial sisters from the Hangshan school, and I haven't thanked you for this yet," Ling Huchang replied. "So how can I blame you?" Tianbo Guang lowered his voice and said, I'll tell you. Before I had a really bad temperament, and you already know about this. Before I had a really bad temperament, and you already know about this. Ever since Grand Marshal Masters shaved my head and made me take the Buddhist name, cannot have no commandment. I cannot do that again. Ling Huchong thought the way monk no commandment reprimanded him was really weird, and his mouth showed a slight smile. Tianbo Guang knew what he was thinking of, and his face turned red. He continued, "But I've never forgotten the skills I've learned from earlier, no matter how far I'm separated by. As long as there are women there, I can feel them." But he has a sixth sense for women. Okay. Ling Huchong was perplexed. He asked, How do you do that?" "I also don't know," Tianbo Guang replied. "I think I can smell women. They're different than men's smell." Ling Huchong laughed aloud. "It's said that some reverend monks can have divine eyes or divine ears. Brother Tian unexpectedly has this divine nose." I'm ashamed. I'm ashamed." Brother Tian's skill was originally used to do bad things, Ling Huchong said. "After undergoing some experience, I never thought that today you'd use this skill to save my Hangshan school disciples." He has a lady radar? He does. He so does. Ying Ying turned her head around to ask what was so funny. But looking at Tianbo Guang's face, she guessed it was something inappropriate, and she quickly shut her mouth. Tianbo Guang suddenly stopped. "There seems to be some Hangshan school disciples on the left." He sniffed around a few times, then went towards the underbrush below the hill. Lowering his head, he searched around for a while. He exclaimed happily and pointed to the ground. "Here!" he cried out. There was a pile of more than 10 big rocks on the place that he had pointed out. Each of these rocks were around 200 to 300 caddies. He immediately removed a rock away. No Commandment and Ling Huchong went over to help. After a while, they had removed more than 10 big rocks, and there was a green slab underneath. The three of them worked together to lift the slab up. It revealed a cave underneath, and there were a few nuns lying there. They were all disciples of Hangshan School. Yiqing and Yimin quickly jumped down the cave and helped their martial sisters to go up. After helping a few, there were still more inside. Each one was gasping for air. They quickly pulled the imprisoned Hangshan disciple up. Yihe, Zheng E, and Qin Juan were among them. There were more than 30 people inside this cave. If they weren't rescued in the next 1 or 2 days, they would have all died. Ling Huchong thought how his master was so violent. He couldn't help being disappointed with him. "Brother Tian, this skill of yours isn't a small thing." Ling Huchong praised him. "These martial sisters were deeply buried underneath, but you can still smell them? Really admirable." "There's nothing strange about it," Tianbo Guang replied. "Luckily, there are many martial uncles from the secular world in there." "Martial uncles? Ah, that's right. You're Yilin's disciple." "If the ones in prison here were all Buddhist martial uncles, then I wouldn't have been able to find them," Tianbo Guang continued. "There's a difference between secular and Buddhist people?" "Of course. Secular females would have this powder fragrance on them," Tianbo Guang explained. Ling Huchong was enlightened. They quickly tried to rescue them. Yiqing and Yilin were using their caps to scoop water in them to give them a drink. Luckily, there was a crack in that cave that allowed air to go in, and Hangshan school disciples had all learned their inner energy. Even though they were extremely distressed, they still had their lives. Yihu had the deepest inner energy, so after drinking some water, she was the first one to recover. "We've only rescued less than a third," Ling Huchong said. "Brother Tian, I have to ask you to use your divine power to help us search for them." The granny stared at Tianbo Guang. Her face looked really suspicious. how did you know they were imprisoned here? She asked. You were probably here when they were being imprisoned, am I right? No, no, Tianbo Guang quickly replied. I've been following Grand Marshal Master. I've never left his side. The granny's face sunk as she shouted, You've always been with him? Tianbo Guang mumbled indistinctly. He knew they had just had a reunion after a long breakup. Along the way, they had been crying, laughing, fighting, even being romantic, and he had heard all of these. This grand master wife of his could turn angry from shyness, and if that happened, it would... Wait. This grand master wife of his could turn angry from shyness, and if that happened, it would be very troublesome. He quickly said, For the last half a year, I've been following Grand Marshal Master. About 10 days ago, we parted ways. We just met again today at Huashan. The granny was half believing and half doubting him. She asked, Then how did you know these nuns were being locked up inside this cave? This. Tianbo Guang mumbled. He didn't know how to phrase it nicely and was feeling very embarrassed. After some time, they suddenly heard the sound of more than 10 horns coming from the mountainside, followed by the sound of drums. It sounded like an army of 10,000 soldiers, and 1,000 horses had come. They were all startled. Ying Ying whispered on Ling Huchang's ear, It's my dad. Oh, Ling Huchang realized, and he wanted to say, So it's my father-in-law. But he felt it was inappropriate, so he didn't say it out loud. The drums thundered for a while, then the horns rang again. Has an army come? The granny asked. Suddenly, both the drums and horns stopped. 7 to 8 people shouted. Sun, moon, divine sects, cultured and esteemed martial artists, benefactors of the common people, Chief Run has arrived. These 7 to 8 people had very deep internal energies, so their shout reverberated throughout the mountain, and echoes could be heard. Chief Run has arrived! Chief Run has arrived! The power of these cries intimidated them, and the color on Monk No Commandment's face and the others changed. The echoes had not finished yet when they heard countless numbers of voices crying out, Long live to Chief! Unify the Changhu! Chief Run flourishes the divine sect! Long live the Chief! Hearing their voices, there were at least 2,000 to 3,000 of them. The echo was again heard from everywhere. Chief Run flourishes the divine sect! Long live to Chief! Chief Run flourishes the divine sect! Long live to Chief! That's a very long title? Yes, it is. After some time, the whole place became quiet. Then someone with a clear voice said, Sun, moon, divine sects is cultured and esteemed martial artists, benefactors of the common people. Chief Run has an order. 5 mountain sword schools as headmasters, and all the disciples in the schools hear this. Everyone will meet at the steps of the peak of morning sun. He spoke 3 times in his clear voice. After stopping for a while, he continued. Fragrant masters and their deputies of the 12 halls lead the sect's disciples to check all the hills and guard the important paths. Don't let people walk around. Anyone who doesn't obey this order will be killed. Around 20 to 30 people immediately acknowledged this order. Ling Huchang and Ying Ying shared a look, and they understood what was going on. That person said to check all the hills and to guard the important paths, to force the disciples of the 5 mountains sword schools to go towards the peak of morning sun to meet with Chief Run. Ling Huchang thought, He's Ying Ying's father. I'm going to marry Ying Ying soon, so I should go see the chief. He told Yihu and the rest of the people, We still have a lot of martial sisters who are still imprisoned. Brother Tian, please lead the way to save them as soon as possible. Chief Run is Young Lady Run's father, so he wouldn't give us any trouble. Young Lady Run and I are going to the East Peak first. Martial sisters, You can follow later, and we'll meet up there on the East Peak. Yi He, Yi Qing, Yi Lin, and the others acknowledged the order and followed Tianbo Guang to save their martial sisters. What is he relying on barking orders here? That granny angrily said. I'm not going to see him. I want to see how this Ren is going to kill me. Ling Huchang knew she was very stubborn and was hard to persuade. If she were to meet Runwal Singh, her speech would most likely offend him, and things would turn out really bad. He immediately took his leave from Monk No Commandment and his wife, then went to the East Peak with Ying Ying. Yeah, she was mute for so long, and now she can't shut up. She just keeps on talking. The three highest peaks in Huashan are the East Peak, South Peak, and West Peak. The East Peak and West Peaks are particularly tall, Ling Huchang said. The real name of the East Peak is the Peak of Morning Sun. Your father chose this peak to meet with the disciples, to make the disciples of the 5 mountain sword schools, to make it look like that we are coming to pay respect to an imperial court. Your father said all the people of the 5 mountain sword schools to go to the Peak of the Morning Sun. Could it be that all the people from all the schools are there at Huashan? In the 5 mountain sword schools, Mr. Yue, Zhu Langchan, and Mr. Mo Da have all passed away today. I don't know who Taishan School has appointed as their headmaster. In this alliance of 5 big sword schools, you're the only headmaster left, Ying Ying said. Besides the Hangshan School, most of the heroes from the 5 schools have all died inside that cave on the Cliff of Contemplation. Besides, the disciples of the Hangshan schools have all been captured and are in distress. I'm afraid. You're afraid my father will take advantage of this to eliminate the 5 mountains sword schools? Ling Huchang nodded his head and let out a sigh. Actually, he doesn't need to do anything. There's not many people left in the school. Ying Ying also let out a sigh. Mr. Yue deceived the masters from the 5 mountain sword schools. He enticed them to look at the sword moves engraved at Huashan with the intention of wiping out all the warriors with good martial arts. That way his position as the headmaster of the 5 mountain school would be safe, and no one from each of the schools would be able to go against him. This move was originally very clever, but Zhuo Langchan unexpectedly got a whiff of this and took those blind men to kill him inside that dark cave. You're saying Zhu Langchan wanted to kill my master? Ling Huchang queried. He wasn't trying to kill me? He didn't know you were going to come, Ying Ying answered. Your swordplay is brilliant, and you already knew the moves engraved on the cave wall a long time ago, so you wouldn't have gone inside to take a look at those sword moves. When we went in there, it was just a coincidence. What you said is right, Ling Huchang agreed. Actually, Zhu Langchan and I had no enmity. Both of his eyes were blinded by my master, and the headmaster position of the 5 mountain school was also snatched by him. Those things would be really cutting to him. Zhu Langchan probably had a strategy prepared, Ying Ying said. He'd tempt Mr. Yue to go inside the cave and then take advantage of the darkness to kill him. I don't know how, but this plan was discovered by Mr. Yue, and instead of going in, he guarded the cave's entrance and captured people using the fish net. This is really the mantis seizing the cicada, not knowing the oriole was just behind. Now, Zhu Langchan and your master have both died, while the reason for all these would never be known. Ling Huchang mournfully nodded his head. Mr. Yue deceived the masters of the 5 mountain sword schools to come here, Ying Ying continued. There must have been a foreshadowing of this matter a long time ago. That day at Songshan, during the fight for the leadership, your little martial sister used the Taishan, Hangshan, Songshan, and Hangshan brilliant sword moves. The masters from all 4 schools witnessed all these, and their hearts would itch in getting to know them. Only the disciples from the Hangshan school had been taught the sword moves from the cave wall by you, so they wouldn't find them extraordinary, while the disciples from Taishan, Hangshan, and Songshan schools would of course be asking where Miss Yue got these sword moves from. Mr. Yue secretly spread the rumor and decided on a date that the cave would be open to them. The masters from these three schools, wouldn't they rushed to be here? For people who study martial art like us, Ling Huchang said, once we hear of a place to learn some brilliant martial art, then we'd definitely brave danger and death to go there. Especially when those martial arts are from our own school. We wouldn't rest until we've seen them. That's why people like the martial uncle Moda and other master hands all died inside that cave. Mr. Yue anticipated that your Hangshan school wouldn't come, so he prepared another plan, Ying Ying said. He used the confusion poison to knock everyone out and took them up to Huashan. I don't understand why Master would spend such a big effort to bring my disciples up to Huashan, Ling Huchang questioned. This matter would be easily discovered since they have to go through such a long journey. Why didn't he just kill all of them at Hangshan? Wouldn't this be easier? He stopped for a tick and then continued. Ah, I understand. If he killed all the Hangshan disciples, then there will be one less mountain from the Five Mountains School. Master wants to be the headmaster of the Five Mountains School, but without Hangshan, he wouldn't be the headmaster of the Five Mountains School. The name simply wouldn't be right. That's one reason, Ying Ying said, but I think there's still one more reason. What's that? The best thing would, of course, be to capture you, Ying Ying explained. Then he'd trade with something of mine. Ling Huchang was enlightened, and he excitedly hit his thigh. That's right! My master wanted the medicine for the three-corpse brain pill. After Mr. Yue was forced to take this pill, he would have been restless day and night, wanting to get a medicine for it, Ying Ying said. One day he wouldn't accept it, and he'd be worried to death. He knew that he could only get the medicine by getting you. Of course, I'm your darling, Ling Huchang replied. Only by using me that he can exchange the medicine from you. Ying Ying pursed her lips. If he was going to use you to trade for the medicine, then I wouldn't trade. The materials for the medicine are so hard to get, and making them isn't easy either, so they're priceless treasures. How could I trade them so easily? The common saying goes, it's easy to find priceless treasure, hard to find a lover. Ying Ying's whole cheeks turned bright red immediately. In a whisper, she said, like a mouse getting on a scale, scaling and praising himself. You know no shame. As they talked, they arrived at a narrow path. This mountain path was perfectly straight as it went up, and it was also very steep. They couldn't walk side by side through this path. You go first, Ying Ying said. You go first, Ling Huchang said. If you fall down, then I'll grab you. No, you go first. But you're not allowed to turn your head back to look at me. You must listen to what Granny tells you to do. She laughed when she finished talking. Fine, I'll go first, Ling Huchang relented. If I fall down, you can grab me. That won't do, Ying Ying hastily replied. She was afraid he wouldn't pretend to misstep to play around with her, so she quickly went up the mountain path first. Even though Ying Ying saw him making a joke, his expression was still melancholic. After he laughed, he turned mournful again. She knew it was difficult for him to forget about Yue Buchun's death. Along the way, she'd tried to make him say some jokes to make him forget about his worries. After a few turns, they arrived at the top of the Jade Maiden Peak. Ling Huchang pointed out to her which one was the Jade Maiden's face washing basin, and which one was the Jade Maiden's dressing table. Ying Ying knew this Jade Maiden Peak was the place he used to play around with Yue Lingshan back then. and she was afraid that he might get even more upset. So she just took a quick glance without asking anything. After going down a slope, they went up a little path towards the peak of the morning sun. They saw guards everywhere around the mountain. The Sun Moon Sex's men were dressed in 7 different gown colors, and they were very disciplined in following the flag going back and forth. Compared to the last time he visited the Dark Wood Cliff, there was a different feeling of dread. Ling Hu Chong secretly praised, Chief Ren is a very learned man. That day when I led thousands of men to attack Shaolin Temple, it was a mess. Everything was chaotic. How can it be compared to the Sun Moon Sex's army, which resembles a body using its arms? Like when an arm wants to point at something with thousands of people resembling one person? Dongfang Bubai is also one great person. It was only later that he made a mistake. And gave the handling of the sexes matter to young Lian Ting. That's when the Darkwood Cliff withered and its power diminished. The people of the Sun Moon sect respectfully bowed their bodies when they saw Ying Ying. They were also very respectful towards Ling Hu Chong. The bannermen roared one by one from the bottom of the peak all the way to the peak, announcing to Run Wo-sing their arrivals. Ling Hu Chong saw all the important places between the bottom of the peak to the peak. The bottom of the peak to the top of the peak were all packed with people from the sect. There were at least 2,000 guards around those places. It seemed that this time the Sun Moon sect had gathered many warriors from the unorthodox path to help them in carrying out this massive operation. All the headmasters from the 5 mountain sword schools were still alive, and all the master hands from the 5 schools were at Huashan, and they had also been deployed beforehand to meet this attack. It was still likely that they would lose. At this time, with the number of talented fighters close to 0, it was impossible for them to fight back. Looking at the situation now, it was certain that Run Wo-sing had a harmful idea towards the 5 mountain sword schools. Since things had come to this, there was nothing he could have done, and now everything was up to the heavens' will. Okay, it looks like if the Sun Moon sect wanted to destroy the 5 mountain school now, it's certainly possible, right? He could only take things step by step. If Run Wo-sing wanted to annihilate the 5 mountain sword schools, then he couldn't just stay on the side preserving his own life. He would have to fight to the death, and Hangshan school disciples would all be killed on top of this peak of morning sun. Although he was clever, he wasn't that experienced and didn't have a plan in mind to face this calamity. When he saw the disciples of the Hangshan school fall into the trap, he also didn't know how to free them, and everything was just left to fate and circumstances. He was also thinking that Ying Ying and Chief Run were related by flesh and blood, so the most she could do would be not to help both sides. So there was no chance she would help him by thinking of a plan to go against her own father. At this time, facing the sexist disciples at the peak of the morning sun, with bows drawn and sabers unsheathed, he didn't even look at them, and he instead told Ying Ying some jokes. But Ying Ying was already tied in knots in worry, so she couldn't be like Ling Hu Chong, who was unworried. Along the way, she'd been churning her brain, thinking on what to do. She pondered, Chong Lang is a fearless person. Even if the sky collapsed, he'd only notice it when it's right on top of him. I've always thought of that. I've always thought of a way for him to do. Wait, what does that mean? I've always thought of a way for him to do? Okay, that's a weird sentence. Thinking that her father had led such a big operation here, it couldn't be anything good. When the situation turned dangerous, then all she could do would be to adapt, since there was no other good option. The two of them slowly went up to the peak. When they reached the summit, they were suddenly assaulted with horns blaring, followed by sounds of music from drums and pipes. This was unexpectedly the welcoming of honored guests. Ling Hucheng whispered, "Father-in-law is welcoming the son-in-law back home." Ying Ying blankly stared at him, and she felt really anxious. She thought, this person really doesn't worry about anything. At this time, he can still joke around. Then she heard a person laugh loudly, and in a clear voice said, "Young lady, Brother Linghu, Chief's been waiting for you for a long time." A slim elder wearing a purple gown took a step forward and gripped both of Ling Hucheng's hands. His face was full of happiness. He was Xiang Wen Tian. When Ling Hucheng saw him, he was also very happy. "Brother Xiang," Ling Hucheng called out, "you're well. I've thought of you often." "At Darkwood Cliff, I keep hearing news of your prestige soaring in Wulin," Xiang Wen-tian laughingly replied. "I drank to you from far away. I've at least drunk more than 10 big pots of wine. Quickly, go see the chief." Taking his hand, he went towards a stone structure several stories high. That stone structure was on top of the east peak. It was extremely big and tall, just like it had been naturally formed. To the east of that structure was the peak of the morning sun's highest place, which was called Deity's Palm. That Deity's Palm had 5 big pillars rising to the sky, with the central pillar being the highest. They saw a big chair placed underneath the central pillar, and a person sat in it. This person was Ren Wo-sing. Ying Ying walked to the front of the palm, looked up, and called out, "Daddy!" Ling Hucheng bowed and said, "Junior Ling Hucheng pays my respect to the chief." Ren Wo-sing laughed aloud. "Ha ha ha! Little brother, you come at the right time. We're all family. There's no need to be so formal. Today our sect will meet with the world's heroes, so we shall talk business first before talking about family matter. My worthy brother, sit beside me." Ling Hucheng heard him paused after saying this word worthy, seemingly like he wanted to say worthy son-in-law, but since it had not been decided yet, he corrected himself from calling him worthy son-in-law. It looked like he had already approved of the marriage between Ying Ying and him. He also said, "We're all family, and we shall talk business first before talking about family matters." It was obvious Ren Wo-sing had regarded him as family. He felt happy and straightened his body up. Suddenly, a cold energy rushed up from his Dantian region, and he felt like he had entered an ice house. His body trembled and continuously shook. Ying Ying was startled and quickly went up to him. "What's wrong?" I... Ling Hucheng stammered out, but he unexpectedly couldn't utter another word. Even though Ren Wo-sing was high up there, his eyesight was still sharp. "Did you clash palms with Zhuo Langchan?" Ling Hucheng nodded. Ren Wo-sing smiled. "It's nothing. You sucked his polar ice energy. Once you scatter it out, it'll be all right. Why isn't Zhuo Langchan coming here?" "Zhuo Langchan secretly set up a violent plan to kill Big Brother Linghu and me," Ying Ying told him. "Big Brother Linghu killed him." "Oh," Ren Wo-sing uttered. He was sitting very high up, so they couldn't see his face. But in this voice, there was an air of disappointment. Ying Ying understood her father's heart. Today he had come in a grand manner to intimidate the 5 mountain sword schools and to suppress the people of the 5 schools. Zhuo Langchan was his big enemy, and now he wouldn't be able to see him bend his knee and lower his head in front of him, so it was unavoidable that he would feel regret. She extended her left hand to hold Ling Hucheng's right hand to help him disperse the cold energy. Ling Huchang's left hand was being held by Xiang Wentian. Together they moved their energies. Ling Huchang gradually felt the coldness in his body disappear. That day, when Run Wo-sing and Zhuo Langchan fought at the Shaolin Temple, he absorbed his polar ice energy and turned into a snowman in the middle of the snow field, along with Ling Huchang, Xiang Wenxian, and Ying Ying. But this time, Ling Huchang had only clashed swords with him and was only exposed to Zhuo Langchan's cold energy for a short time. Moreover, he didn't try to absorb it himself, so only a little amount of cold energy was absorbed. A short time later, he wasn't trembling anymore. I'm all right. Thank you, Ling Huchang said. Little brother, Run Wo-sing said, you heard my call and came up the peak to see me. Very good, very good. He then turned his head towards Xiang Wenxian and said, why haven't the people from the other 4 schools arrived yet? Subordinate will call them again, Xiang Wenxian replied. He waved his left hand, and 8 old men in yellow gowns lined up immediately in front of the peak. They called out together, Sun Moon Divine Sex's cultured and esteemed martial artist, benefactors of the common people, Chief Run has an order. Taishan, Hangshan, Huashan, and Songshan schools, everyone must quickly come to the peak of the morning sun for a meeting. Each hall's fragrant master asks them to come up quickly and not to delay. Oh wait, it echoes. Delay, 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 delay. These 8 old men were all masters with deep internal energies. When they combined their voices together, they were very far and were able to be heard from all the peaks. Then they heard from all directions. There were people answering, as ordered, long live the chief, unify the Jianghu. These were the replies from the Sun Moon Sex's fragrant masters. Headmaster Ling Hu, please take a seat beside me, a smiling Run Wo-sing said. Ling Huchang saw 5 chairs arranged on the west side of the deity's palm. Each chair was draped with a brocade of the colors black, white, blue-green, red, and yellow, while a mountain peak was embroidered on each brocade. North Hangshan was black, and on the black satin was Xianxing Peak embroidered with white thread. He saw the embroidering was attractive, and with only a layer of it covering the chair, it had shown how meticulous the Sun Moon sect had arranged this. In the 5 mountain schools, Songshan was the leader, while the North Hangshan was last in standing. But in this seat arrangement, the order had been reversed. The seat of Hangshan's headmaster was at the head, followed by the West Mountain Huashan, while Songshan School was last. It was Run Wo-sing who had lifted his position to intentionally humiliate Zhuo Langchan. But since Zhuo Langchan, Yue Buchun, Mr. Moda, and Priest Tian Men had all passed away, Ling Huchang didn't try to decline. He bowed and said, I'll take a seat, and went to sit on the chair with the black satin draped on it. The people at the peak of the morning sun were silently waiting. After a long time, Xian Wenxian again commanded those 8 old men to call out again, but they still didn't see anyone coming up. These people don't know how to appreciate favors, Xiang Wenxian said. We're so late in meeting Chief. Call our people to come up first. The 8 yellow-gowned old men called out, 5 lakes, 4 oceans, every island, every cave, every clan, every stronghold, every mountain, every hall, brothers, come up to the peak of morning sun to meet the chief. When the word chief had just been uttered, the mountain peak was drowned by people crying out, as ordered. Their cries shook the valley. Ling Huchang couldn't help being startled. Hearing this voice, there were at least 200 to 300 of them. These people secretly hid themselves and had guessed Run Wo-sing's intention. He had wanted to wait for the people of the 5 mountain sword schools to arrive first, before these thousands of people called out in order to startle and intimidate the 5 mountain sword schools. so they wouldn't dare to resist. All of a sudden, people from all directions came out around the peak of morning sun. Although there were a lot of them, they didn't make any noise at all. Every person stood separately at their places. It seemed that they had practiced this beforehand. There were around 2,000 to 3,000 people who had come up the peak. They were all people from the unorthodox path. The rest of the sex's subordinates were still waiting around the side of the peak. Ling Hucheng swept his eyes and saw Blue Phoenix, Zhu Qianchu, Old Man, and Ji Wuxia among them. These people had perhaps been controlled by the Sun Moon sect, or perhaps they had always been communicating. That day when Ling Hucheng led the heroes to attack the Shaolin Temple, these people also took part. They looked at Ling Hucheng and were all smiling, but none of them called out. Besides the sound of footsteps shuffling, no other sound was heard from these thousands of people on top of this peak. Xiang Wentian raised his right hand and drew a circle in the air. The thousands of people simultaneously kneeled down and simultaneously said, Jiang Hu's juniors, pay our respect to the Sun Moon Sex's cultured and esteemed martial artists, benefactors of the common people, sacred chief. Long live to sacred chief, unify the Jianghu. These people were all warriors with high martial arts, and they were using their energy to call out. One person was like 10 people's voices. When they said, Long live to sacred chief, unify the Jianghu, all the Sun Moon Sex's people around the mountain also joined in. The sound was really shaking the sky and the earth. Run Walsing majestically sat without moving. He waited for the cries to finish before he lifted his hand. Everyone has worked hard. Rise. Thank you, sacred chief, the thousands of people said together, and they stood up at the same time. Ling Hucheng thought, that time when I went up the dark wood cliff, I saw the people in the sect shamelessly flattering Dongfang Bubai that I wanted to vomit just observing them. I never thought when Run Walsing became chief, the situation would become even worse. They've now added sacred in front of his title. They've now added sacred in front of his title, making him sacred chief. I don't think even the hundreds of scholars and warrior officials would debase themselves in such a fashion when they go see the current emperor and praise him with long live the emperor. I'm a person who studies martial art. If I acted like this, insultingly towards other heroes and people, can I still be called a man? A gentleman? When he thought till here, his qi suddenly rushed up. Suddenly he felt pain in his dantian region. His vision darkened and he felt dizzy. Both of his hands gripped the chair's arms tightly. His teeth bit on his lower lip until blood seeped out. He knew that after he learned the art of essence absorbing, he had sworn off never to use it. But when he was trapped by Yue Buchun inside of that fishnet, his life was hanging by a thread, and he was forced to use this demonical method to absorb Yue Buchun's inner energy. By doing this, he had actually done great harm to himself. He forcefully restrained himself not to groan aloud, but his body was trembling, and his whole face was full of perspiration and distorted. The pain he was in was shown clearly in his expression. Everyone was able to see this clearly. Zhu Qianchu and the others were all looking at him, feeling very concerned. Ying Ying walked behind him and whispered, Brother Cheng, I'm here. Under the watchful eyes of thousands of people, she could only say this before her face turned bright red. Ling Hucheng turned his head around to take a look at her, and he felt somewhat better. He immediately thought of the words Run Walsing said that day at Hangzhou. Run Walsing said after he had learned this art of essence absorbing, he'd get different types of internal energy inside his body, and there would come a day when he had to scatter them out. Once he had scattered them, the fierceness would increase by 1-fold. All those years ago, Runwo Singh gave up his position of chief to Dongfang Bubai, also because of these different types of internal energies inside his own body. He always thought on how to solve this problem that he couldn't think of anything else and was taken advantage of by Dongfang Bubai. Runwo Singh was then imprisoned under the West Lake for more than 10 years, where he finally discovered how to solve this problem. But he wanted Ling Huchong to join the Sun Moon sect first before he would teach him this method. At that time, Ling Huchong was unyielding in his thinking that had been ingrained in his mind since he was small, that the demonical and the orthodox couldn't coexist, and that he could never join the devil's sect. Later on, he saw Zhuo Langchan, who was a big master of the orthodox path, becoming deceitful and violent, and his actions not differing too much when compared to the devil's sect. Thus, the line between orthodox and demonical wasn't that clear anymore. Sometimes he also thought that if Runwo Singh was determined to make him join the sect, then only if he agreed. Sometimes he also thought that if Runwo Singh was determined to make him join the sect, then only if he agreed to marry Ying Ying off to him would he just join the sect without care. His nature was easygoing, and he didn't take anything seriously. It didn't worry him whether he joined the sect or not. It wasn't a big deal. But that day on the dark wood cliff, when he saw the heroes being so humble towards Dongfang Bubai and Runwo Singh, and with them speaking so flatteringly and insincerely, he couldn't help feeling a strong dislike against the sect instead. He was thinking that if he joined the sect, then he must also spend his days like a slave, and he'd become a useless person. Every person has his own fate in living and dying. If he was required to beg to keep his life, then Ling Huchong would never do it. Now he had further seen Runwo Singh abuse his power and arranged everything like he was better than an emperor. He thought of the day when Runwo Singh was back in the dark prison underneath the West Lake, how there was no scenery in there at all. But today he insulted the world's heroes like they were not people at all. At this time, he suddenly heard someone say in a clear voice, "Reporting to Sacred Chief, Angshan School disciples have arrived." Ling Hucheng was startled. He saw Yi He, Yi Qing, Yi Lin, and the rest of the Hangshan disciples helping each other to go up the peak. Monk No Commandment, his wife, Tianbo Guang, were all walking behind them. "Friends," Bao Da Chu said in a loud voice, "please go and see the sacred chief." Yi Qing and the rest of the disciples saw Ling Hucheng sitting on the side. They knew Runwo Singh was his father-in-law, so even though they felt the orthodox and demonical shouldn't be together, on account of their headmaster, they paid their respects as juniors. Walking to the front of the deity's palm, they bowed to pay their respect. "Hangshan School's junior disciples pay our respects to Chief Run." "Kneel and kowtow," Bao Da Chu ordered. "We're Buddhists," Yi Qing replied in a loud voice. "We worship Buddha, worship Bodhisattva, worship Master. We don't worship ordinary people." "Sacred Chief isn't an ordinary person," Bao Da Chu shouted. "He's a divine deity, just like Buddha and Bodhisattva." Yi Qing turned her head to look at Ling Hucheng. Ling Hucheng shook his head. "If you want to kill us, then kill us," Yi Qing replied. "Disciples of Hangshan do not worship ordinary people." Well said, Monk No Commandment said as he laughed aloud. "Which school are you from?" Xiang Wenxian indignantly questioned. "Where do you come from?" He saw the Hangshan school disciples weren't willing to kowtow to Runwo Singh, and the situation was now at a deadlock. If they troubled the female disciples, then it wouldn't be good in front of Ling Hucheng. So he immediately turned to Monk No Commandment to divide Runwo Singh's attention and make him forget of the kowtow incident. Big temples don't want to take me in, while little temples don't want such a wild monk. So I have no family or school. Monk No Commandment laughingly replied, I heard there'll be lots of people gathering here, so I came here to take a look and join in the revelry. Today, the Divine Sun Moon sect is here to meet the 5 mountain sword schools, Xiang Wenqian said. Other people aren't allowed to be here. Go down the mountain. Xiang Wenqian said this politely. Was that polite? Because he was taking into account Ling Hucheng's face. He saw Monk No Commandment had come up together with the Hangshan School's female disciples, so he'd expected him to be related to the Hangshan School. Thus, he didn't want to make things too difficult for him. This Mount Huashan doesn't belong to your devil sect, said a smiling No Commandment. If I want to be here, then I'll be here. If I want to go, then I'll go. Besides the Huashan School disciples, who dares to tell me what to do? These words, devil sect, were a very big taboo in the Sun Moon sect, even though the people in Wulin often use the word devil sect behind their backs. They never blatantly speak these words to their faces. Monk No Commandment was a very frank person who spoke his mind, and there was nothing he was afraid of saying. When he heard Xiang Wenqian telling him to go down the mountain, he was displeased and didn't even care how many people the enemy had, and unexpectedly didn't show any fear. Alright, oh my god, this chapter is so long. We're only like here. Are we not even halfway yet? Alright. Give me 5 minutes, okay? 5-minute break. I'll be right back. And we're back. Alright, so they're meeting Ron Walsing, right? And then I guess Xian Wenxian is getting into an argument with the Monk No Commandment. Xiang Wenxian turned to Ling Hucheng and said, Brother Ling Hu, what's the relationship between your honorable school and this crazy monk? Ling Hucheng's chest and stomach were in great pain, so he tremblingly replied, This is Great Master No Commandment. Runwo Singh was extremely angry to have heard No Commandment address them as the devil sect. He was afraid Ling Hucheng might say that this monk was deeply connected to him, and they wouldn't be able to kill him. Without waiting for Ling Hucheng to finish, he immediately shouted, Kill this crazy monk! As ordered, 8 elders in yellow gown acknowledged. They cupped their fists and attacked Monk No Commandment immediately after. You're relying on many people? No Commandment shouted. He only said a few words, and the attacks from the 8 elders had arrived. How shameless! That granny shouted. She leapt in the crowd, got behind Monk No Commandment's back, and used her palms to fight with the enemies. These 8 elders were Sun Moon Sect's #1 experts, and their martial arts were about similar to that of Monk No Commandment and the granny. Moreover, with 8 against 2, they soon got the upper hand. Tianbo Guang pulled out his knife, and Yilin raised her sword to enter the fight. Both of their martial arts were far below theirs, and 2 of the 8 elders separated to fight them. Tianbo Guang fought with his fast knife chops, and he was able to hold up, but Yilin was already pressed by her enemy until she was gasping for air. If it wasn't for the fact that the elder saw her wearing Hangshan school uniform, that he was giving way to her on Ling Hucheng's account, she would have been killed. Ling Hucheng stooped down and pressed his left hand to his stomach. His right hand pulled his longsword out and called out, Stop! Stop! Rushing into the fight with his longsword trembling, he executed 8 moves to force 4 elders to move back. He turned around and executed another 8 moves. These 16 moves were from the Dugu 9 sword art, and each move was aimed at an elder's fatal point. The 8 elders were forced back, and they didn't dare to fight with him for real, so they all stepped back. Ling Wuchang crouched on the ground and said, Chief, run, on my account, please, let them. But he couldn't utter the last word, go. Run Wo-sing saw his situation and guessed that the different types of internal energy inside his body were coming out. He knew that his daughter wanted to marry him, and he himself liked his personality. Also, as he never had a son, he was hoping that he would someday be the divine sex's chief. So he immediately nodded his head and said, Since Headmaster Ling Hu requested this, I'll be lenient today. Xian Wentian moved in a flash, with both his hands striking out to seal the acupoints on No Commandment and his wife, Tian Boguang and Yi Lin. He struck out really fast and mysteriously. Even though the granny had fast and lightning movement, she unexpectedly couldn't escape from his strike. Xiang, Ling Wuchang was alarmed. Don't worry, Xiang Wenxiang laughed. Sacred Chief already said he's going to be lenient. He turned his head and called out, 8 guards, step out. 8 people wearing blue-green gowns came out and bowed. We're ready to receive Left Protector Xiang's order. 4 males and 4 females, Xiang Wenxiang said. 4 males immediately stepped back, replaced by 4 females. These 4 people spoke improperly and ought to have been killed, Xiang Wenxiang said. But Sacred Chief is lenient and tolerant, and on account of Headmaster Ling Hu, he granted them leniency. Take them down the mountain and unseal their acupoints. The 8 respectfully bowed and acknowledged the order. Xiang Wenxian lowered his voice and relayed more order. They're Headmaster Ling Hu's friends. Don't be rude to them. Yes, the 8 people answered. Taking these 4 people behind their backs, they went down from the peak. Ling Wuchang and Ying Ying saw No Commandment, and the other 3 people had escaped with their lives, so they let out a long sigh of relief. Thank you, Ling Wuchang said in a trembling voice from his crouching position on the ground, as he couldn't stand back up. Just then, when he executed the 16 moves, he forced the 8 elders to retreat. However, each of these elders had excellent martial arts, and his sword moves wouldn't have been able to injure them. Although he used the 16 moves in the blink of an eye, he had consumed a large amount of energy to do so. Now his chest and stomach felt even more painful. Xiang Wentian was secretly worried, but his face wasn't showing it. He laughingly said, Brother Ling Hu, are you unwell? Back then, Ling Wuchang and he combined together to fight against numerous heroes and became sword brothers. Even sword brothers or sworn brothers. Even though they had rarely met, their friendship would never change through life and death. He took Ling Wuchang's hand and supported him to sit back on his chair, while secretly giving Ling Wuchang his internal energy to help him fight against the turmoil in his internal energy. Ling Wuchang thought that since he had the art of essence absorbing, so with Xiang Wenxian doing this, he might inadvertently absorb Xiang Wenxian's martial art. Thus, he quickly struggled to break free from his grip. Big brother Xiang, don't. I'm okay now. From among the 5 mountain sword schools, only Hangshan School came to this meeting, Run Wo-sing said. The disciples from the remaining 4 schools are unexpectedly afraid to come up this peak. We won't be polite anymore then. At this time, Shang Guanyun quickly walked up to the peak and arrived at the front of the deity's palm. He bowed and said, Reporting to Sacred Chief, inside the cave on the Cliff of Contemplation, I found hundreds of corpses. Songshan School's headmaster Zhou Langchan is amongst the dead. There are also countless Songshan, Hangshan, and Taishan master hands. It seems they had killed each other. It would be sworn brother? Yeah. It should be sworn brother, not sword brothers. Ah! Runwo Singh gasped. Hangshan's headmaster Moda is among them? Subordinate carefully examined the corpses, Zhang Guanyun reported. I didn't find Moda among them. I also didn't find his traces anywhere in Huashan. Ling Huchong and Ying Ying felt happy and surprised at the same time. They looked at each other and both thought, Mr. Moda can mysteriously appear and disappear, and he actually managed to escape from danger. I'm guessing he might have pretended to be dead amongst the corpses until everything was safe before coming out. All right, yay. I like Mr. Moda. So it's good that he escaped. Good night, Streety McNeedy. Then they heard Shang Guanyun continue. Taishan Schools' Yu Qinzi and Yu Yinzi are also dead. Runwo Singh was very displeased to hear this. What else? Outside the cave, Zhang Guanyun continued, there's another corpse. Who is it? Runwo Singh asked hastily. Subordinate checked, and he was Huashan School's headmaster. He's the newly appointed headmaster of the Five Mountain School, the gentleman's sword, Yue Bu Chun. He knew Ling Huchong would inevitably be the sect's chief in the future, and that Yue Bu Chun was his master, so that was why he spoke so respectfully about him. When Runwo Singh heard Yue Bu Chun had also died, he couldn't help feeling disappointed. He asked, Who else has died? When subordinate was inside the cave on the cliff of contemplation, checking things out, I heard there was sounds of fighting behind the cave, Zhang Guanyun said. I came out to take a look and saw a group of Huashan School people and Taishan School priests fighting each other. They were saying that the other group had killed their master. Both parties fought violently, and many died. I have brought them here to receive the sacred chief's punishment. Runwo Singh hummed and said, Yue Bu Chun was killed by Taishan School? Who in Taishan School has the ability to do that? From the Hangshan School, Yi Qing said in a clear voice, No, Yue Bu Chun was killed by a sister from the Hangshan School. Who? Runwo Singh demanded. The one who just went down the peak, little martial sister Yi Lin. Yue Bu Chun killed our abbess master and martial uncle Ding Yu. Everyone in our school hates him to the bone. Today, with the blessing of Buddha, abbess master and martial uncle Ding Yu borrowed little martial sister's hand to punish this evildoer. Runwo Singh hummed. So that's how it is. That can be said the heaven's net is great, and no one can escape. His disappointment was evident in his speech. Jiang Wentian and the elders were looking at each other and were all feeling dejected. This time, the Sun Moon sect had come to Huashan and had planned everything meticulously. Not only had all the master hands from the sect came out, they had also gathered all the subordinates from each clan, each stronghold, each cave, and each island to force the Five Mountain School to submit to them. If the 5 schools didn't want to submit, then they would immediately be annihilated. Then Runwo Singh and the Sun Moon sect would control the world. They would continue with Shaolin and Wudang schools, and none from among the orthodox path would be able to resist. The business of Long Live the Chief and unifying the Jianghu was to be settled today on the peak of the morning sun at Mount Huashan. Unexpectedly, Zhu Langchan, Yue Bu Chun, and the masters from the Taishan school had killed each other, and the whereabouts of Mr. Moda was unknown. There weren't many left of the juniors from the 4 schools. The meticulous planning and preparation that had been done by Runwo Singh had all been useless. Runwo Singh got angrier as he thought more. He shouted, Bring those dogs from the 5 schools up here. Yes, Shang Guanyun replied. He turned around to go down the peak to get them. The different types of internal energies that were disturbed in Ling Huchang's body gradually calmed down. When he heard Runwal Singh say, "Bring those dogs from the 5 schools up here," he still felt unhappy because even though Runwal Singh wasn't scolding himself, Hangshan School was still a part of the 5 Mountains Sword School. After some time, shouting was heard as 2 elders from the Sun Moon sect led a group of sexist people herding 33 disciples from the Songshan, Taishan, Hangshan, and Huashan school up to the peak. Originally, Huashan school didn't have that many disciples, but most of the master hands from Songshan, Taishan, and Hangshan schools who came to Mount Huashan had died. These 33 disciples were not only nameless, each one of them were also injured. If not for the Sun Moon sexist people helping them to walk, they wouldn't have been able to get up the peak. Runwal Singh was furious when he saw them. Without waiting for them to come closer, he shouted, "Why do I want these dogs to come here for? Take them down! Take them all down!" "As ordered by Sacred Chief," those 2 elders replied, and brought those 33 disciples down from the peak. Runwal Singh swore a few times before he suddenly laughed aloud. "The actions of the 5 Mountain Sword Schools can be said to be unforgivable by heaven. We don't have to do anything, and they're already killing each other. From now on, they no longer exist in Jianghu." Xiang Wenqian, along with the 10 elders, bowed and said, "This is Sacred Chief's great fortune. All those little bandits died by themselves." Xiang Wenqian also said, "Within the 5 Mountain Sword Schools, Hangshan School is the only one left. This is all because of Headmaster Ling Hu's leadership. From now on, Hangshan School and our divine sect will have the same root, different branches. We're going to be prosperous and glorious. Congratulations, Sacred Chief, to obtain a young hero with no equal in this world to be your vice." "That's right," Runwal Singh said. "Left Protector Xiang said it well. Little brother Ling Hu, from today onwards, you can disband your Hangshan school. All the Shirtai and the female disciples in your school are all welcome to come to our Darkwood Cliff. Otherwise, it wouldn't be appropriate to stay at Mount Hangshan. Then you can take this Hangshan's remnants as your vice chief's personal army." He looked up at the sky and let out a loud laugh that shook the valley. When they heard the words "vice chief," all of them were stupefied. A moment later, they all cheered, and cries from all directions were heard. "Hero Ling Hu, be our sect's vice chief. It's very good." "Congratulations, Sacred Chief, getting an excellent deputy." "Congratulations, Sacred Chief. Congratulations, Sacred Chief." "Long live to the Sacred Chief. Long live the vice chief." All the people from the sect had long regarded Ling Hucheng as their chief's son-in-law, and as he was also appointed as vice chief, it was natural that he would inherit the chief position in the future. They knew he was an easygoing person, and when he ascends to power, they most likely wouldn't have to be so anxious like the current time, when they were forever in fear. The rest of the Jianghu heroes here had most likely followed Ling Hucheng in attacking the Shaolin Temple, and had gone through trials and tribulations with him. Or perhaps they had received Ying Ying's kindness in getting the medicine. They all supported him from the bottom of their hearts. "Congratulations, Vice Chief," Xiang Wenqian happily said. "Let's drink your celebratory wine to welcome you to the sect first. Then we'll drink your celebratory wine for your marriage to young lady. What a double happiness! Happiness on top of happiness." But Ling Hucheng was at a loss. He knew this matter would not happen, but he also didn't know how to decline it. Another thought was if he declined this, then his wish to marry Ying Ying would not happen. Also, once Runwal Singh was angered, he might even be killed. He didn't regret dying, but he was afraid that all the disciples of the Hangshan school might all be killed right here. Should he decline it immediately? Or wait, Should he decline it immediately, or should he agree for the time being to let the Hangshan disciples to go down the mountain safely? He slowly turned his head around to look at the Hangshan disciples. Some of them were looking angry, some had their heads lowered, looking sad. Some were looking apprehensive. None of them knew what to do. Then he heard Shang Guanyun say in a clear and loud voice, "Under the leadership of Sacred Chief and the help of Vice Chief, let's burn Shaolin, destroy Wudang, Kunlun, and Eimei. Then we'll also annihilate the Beggar Clan. This will be done easily. Long live to Sacred Chief. Unify the Jianghu. Long live Vice Chief. Your benevolence is endless." Ling Huchong was hesitating in making a decision, but hearing Shang Guanyun giving him an ode, "Long live Vice Chief, your benevolence is endless," even though it was still not as much as what Ron Wo-sing received, if he really became the Vice Chief, then this ode would forever follow him. Thinking till here, he felt it was very comical, and couldn't help uttering a laugh. This laughter seemed like a ridicule, and when they heard it, the whole peak of morning sun became quiet all of a sudden. Apprehensive definition? Apprehensive means like you're worried, or like um you're kind of worried, you don't know what to do. You're being apprehensive. Yeah. Anxious, alarm, worried, uneasy, nervous. This laughter seemed like a ridicule, and when they heard it, the whole peak of morning sun became quiet all of a sudden. "Headmaster Ling Hu," Xiang Wenxian addressed him, "Sacred Chief gives you this Vice Chief position. This means among everyone in Wulin, there's only one person above you, and you have tens of thousands of people below. Quickly, thank the Sacred Chief." Suddenly, Ling Huchong was enlightened. Without preparation, he stood up and spoke towards the deity's palm. "Chief Ren, Junior has two big matters that I'd like to discuss with the chief." "You might as well say it," said a smiling Ren Wo-sing. "The first matter," Ling Huchong said, "Junior was entrusted the position of the Hangshan School headmaster by Dingxian Shitai, and I took up the position. If I didn't, even if I can't improve the prestige of the Hangshan School, I mustn't take the Hangshan School into the Sun Moon Divine Sect either. Otherwise, later under the Nine Fountains, how would I have the face to meet Dingxian Shitai? That's the first matter. The second matter is personal. I'm asking Chief to let our daughter be my wife. To let your daughter be my wife." When the crowd heard him mention the first matter, they felt things would go bad. But hearing him following it up with a public marriage proposal, they looked at each other, smiling. Run Wo-sing laughed loudly and said, "The first matter is easily solved. Just give the headmaster position of the Hangshan School to a Shitai here. After you swear the oath to join the divine sect, we can then discuss if the Hangshan School still needs to join the sect or not. The second matter, Ying Ying and you are perfectly suited to each other, and the whole world already knows. Of course I agree to her marrying you. Why need to be so worried for?" Everyone shouted their agreements and was calling out happily. "Oh yay, he accepted. Yay." Ling Huchong turned his head around and took a look at Ying Ying. Both her cheeks were crimson, and her face showing her delight. He waited until the laughter from the crowd died down before he said in a clear voice, "Because of the chief's kindness, Junior has been invited to join the honorable sect, and I was also given a high position. But Junior is a plain person. who doesn't follow custom. So if I join the honorable sect, then I'll definitely ruin the chief's big matters. After careful consideration, I'm hoping the chief will withdraw the offer. Runwal Singh was angered, and he coldly said, "You're saying you don't want to join the divine sect?" "That's right," Ling Hucheng replied. Those two words were said determinedly, and it left no doubt. In that moment, everyone on the peak of the morning sun lost the colors on their faces. The different types of internal energies you've accumulated in your body manifested today, Runwal Singh said. Half a year from now, give or take 3 months, they'll manifest again. Then each time it does, it'll be even worse. As for the method to harmonize them, I'm the only one in the whole world who know how to do it. That day in the Hangzhou Plum Manor, and also at the foot of the Mount Shaoshi in the middle of the snow field, Chief already told me about this, Ling Hucheng said. Junior just tasted the feeling of these different types of energies manifesting. It's like my body was going through 1,000 deaths. But a gentleman will walk through Jianghu without caring about being dead or alive, sad or happy. Runwal Singh snorted. You can still talk so bravely. Today, your Hangshan school is all in my grasp. I won't let a single one of you go down the mountain alive. I can do that as easy as turning my hand over. Although the Hangshan school is mostly women, we have no fear, Ling Hucheng said. If the chief wants to kill us, then we pledge to fight to the death. Yi Qing waved a hand, and all the disciples of the Hangshan school stood behind Ling Hucheng. We as disciples of the Hangshan school follow the headmaster's order. We're not afraid of dying, Yi Qing shouted. We're not afraid of dying, the rest of the disciples shouted together. The enemies are many. We're few. We've also fallen into a trap. Later, heroes in Jianghu will find out how our Hangshan school fight to the death. Runwal Singh was furious. He looked up to the sky and laughed aloud. If I kill you today, they're going to say I set up this ambush to harm you. Ling Hucheng, bring your disciples back to Mount Hangshan. 1 month from now, I'm going to personally go to Xianxing Peak. If by that time a dog or a bird can remain alive on Mount Hangshan, then you can regard me as gutless. The sexist people cried out, Long live the sacred chief! Unify the Jianghu! Slaughter on Mount Hangshan! Dogs and birds won't be spared. According to the Sun Moon sexist cries, going up the Xianxing Peak to annihilate the Hangshan school was only one climb away. Regardless of how the Hangshan school prepared their defenses once they get back, the Sun Moon sect was certain to slaughter them. Previously, when the 5 mountain sword schools became enemy with the Sun Moon sect, the 5 schools supported each other. If one school had a difficulty, the other 4 would come to help. Over the last 100 years, this had kept the situation unchanged, with no side winning or losing. Now, with only one school remaining from the 5 Mountains Sword School Alliance, of course there would be no way for them to resist. This point was understood by everyone in the Hangshan school. When Runwal Singh said he wanted to slaughter the Hangshan school without sparing any bird or dog, it wasn't just big talk. Actually, in Runwal Singh's mind, he was thinking of another thing. Even though Ling Hucheng's sword art was excellent, he would be unable to do it alone, and Hangshan school by itself wouldn't be able to avert disaster. What was actually tugging at his mind was Shaolin and Wudang schools. He was thinking that when Ling Hucheng went back and suddenly asked for help from Shaolin and Wudang, these 2 schools would definitely dispatch their master hands to Xianxing Peak to help. Then, instead of attacking Hangshan, he'd attack Wudang and set up a 3-way ambush between Mount Shaoshi and Mount Wudang. Since Mount Wudang and Shaolin Temple were only hundreds of li apart, Wudang would certainly notify Shaolin when they were in trouble. By that time, a large number of experts from the Shaolin Temple would have gone to Hangshan, while the rest would definitely come out of their nests to help Wudang. Then the Sun Moon sect would attack Shaolin Temple and burn it down first. By that time, the ambush would be sprung and it would annihilate the Shaolin monks en route to Wudang. Once that was accomplished, then they'd go. Well, he has the whole strategy thought up. Once that was accomplished, they would surround the Mount Wudang but not attack immediately. They would wait for the masters from Shaolin and Wudang who had gone to Hangshan to hear of the news first. These master hands would rush thousands of li to be back at Wudang, while the Sun Moon Divine Sect would leisurely wait for them and ambush them midway, and things would go well. After that, attacking Wudang and annihilating Hangshan would be as easy as turning his palm over. At this instant, he had decided on the plan to do away with Shaolin and Wudang, and he had been repeating it over and over in his head, guessing that it would most likely succeed. Even though Ling Huchong had insulted him by not willing to enter the sect, it was only by his act that the Sun Moon Divine Sect would succeed in uniting Jianghu. The happiness in Runwal Singh's heart was indescribable. Ling Huchong turned to Ying Ying and said, "Ying Ying, you can't go with me?" Ying Ying's eyes were already full of tears a long time ago. She couldn't endure it anymore, and tears flowed down her cheeks. "If I follow you to Hangshan, that won't be filial. If I lose you, it's also not right. It's hard to fulfill both filialness and comradeship. Brother Chong, don't think about me anymore. In any case, What? In any case, you won't live for much longer. I also wouldn't live one day longer than you." "Your father already agreed to marry you to me," said a smiling Ling Huchong. "He's a chief with long life, a sacred chief who unifies the Jianghu. How can his words not be believed? How about if we pay respect to heaven and earth right here and become husband and wife?" Ying Ying was startled. Although she knew Ling Huchong was rash and unruly, she didn't expect he would say such a thing. Her face couldn't help turning bright red. How can we do that?" Ling Huchong laughed aloud and said, "We'll part here then." He knew Ying Ying's heart. She was waiting for Runwal Singh to lead the sect to attack Hangshan, and once he died, she would also commit suicide. This was inevitable, and there was nothing to stop it. If at this time she could do away with custom and agree to marry him on this peak of morning sun and go back together to Mount Hangshan, then they could have enjoyed a few days as newlyweds and died together later on. There would have been no regret. But this act was just too shocking. It didn't matter when Ling Huchong, who lived like a beggar, But this act was just too shocking. It didn't matter when Ling Huchong, who lived like a beggar, did it. But for young Lady Run, who was shy and proper, she definitely couldn't do it. Moreover, if she did this, then it would also make her not filial. So, after he laughed, he cupped his fist towards Runwo Singh, Xiang Wenxian, and the elders around there. "Ling Huchong will respectfully wait for you all at Xianxing Peak," Ling Huchong said. Once he finished, he turned around to go. "Wait," Xiang Wenxian quickly interrupted. "Bring the wine over. Brother Linghu, if we don't get drunk today, we won't have the chance later on." Ling Huchong laughed heartily. "Wonderful, wonderful. Brother Xian really knows me." When the Sun Moon sect came to Mount Huashan, they had planned everything meticulously. When Xian Wenxian shouted, "Bring the wine over," subordinates carrying jugs of wine immediately came over, broke open the cover, and poured the wine. Xiang Wenxian and Ling Huchong each drank a bowl. From the crowd, a short and stout person walked out. That person was Old Man, and he said, "Master Linghu, I will always remember your benevolence. I salute you with a bowl today. As he finished saying this, he heaved a bowl and gulped it down. He was only a nobody who was under the jurisdiction of the Sun Moon sect, and his position was nowhere near that of Xiang Wentian. When Ling Huchong wasn't willing to join the sect, he had publicly insulted Run Wo Xing. So a small fry like old man daring to come forward to toast Ling Huchong would probably meet with death soon. He put comradeship above his own life and didn't think of the dangers facing him in the future. When the crowd saw him so daring, they secretly admired him. Zhu Qianqiu, Ji Wushi, Blue Phoenix, Huang Bo and the other people came forward one by one and toasted him. Ling Huchong drank his bowl of wines and saw the people coming up to toast him were unending. He thought, so many friends regard me, and Ling Huchong hasn't lived in vain. But why do I have to kill them? He lifted his bowl and said, Friends, Ling Huchong can't drink anymore, so let's stop drinking for today. When you come to attack Hangshan, I'll prepare wine at the bottom of the mountain, and we'll get drunk before we fight. He gulped down a bowl when he finished saying his speech. The crowd said together, Headmaster Ling Hu, a straight talk from a straightforward person. There were also people who said, After we get drunk, we'll fight a drunken fight. It'll be interesting. Uptight people die full of regrets. True. Ling Huchong tossed his wine bowl on the ground and drunkenly walked down the peak. Yiqing, Yihe, and the other Hangshan disciples followed him down the peak. Alright guys, this chapter is way too long. And I can feel my voice going. It's going. Okay, it's leaving my body. I say we stop now. Right? And we continue this next week. Because it's going to take, another 2 hours? Maybe even more? Yeah. So let's cut it. Time. All right. What did you guys think of that chapter? So it looks like the other 4 schools are all dead. Like they're all gone. Like all their senior masters are dead. Like most of their headmasters are dead. Yue Wuchun is dead. So everyone's basically dead. So there's only 1 school left. So it seems like the alliance is gone. Yeah, this is a good stopping point. So he's just left. They've agreed to fight against in a month, I think. Yeah, and looks like Run Wo Xing has a plan to ambush the other 2 schools, Shaolin and Wudang. So he can just destroy all of the schools and then unify the martial arts world. Dun, 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 dun. Wait. On your book, there's only 4 pages left. It seems like there's a lot. Seems like there's a lot. Oh, wait a minute. Oh, you know what happened? Okay, never mind. We're almost done, actually. Okay. I know what happened. I scrolled down too much, and this includes the next chapter too. Shit. Alright, let's just finish this. We're almost done, guys. Almost done. Am I gonna buy some champagne to drink for the last chapter? Champagne? I have some wine here. Why do I need champagne? With the whole thing? No, we're not done with the whole thing. we're almost done with the second to the last chapter. Okay. Yeah. Let me just drink this first. Cheers. All right, I was mistaken. All right, we're almost done with this chapter, so let's just finish it. They falling down the peak. When the crowd was sharing a drink with Ling Hu Chong, Run Wo Sing was smiling and didn't utter a word, but his heart was thinking on how to prepare the three-way ambush between Shaolin and Wudang, how to pretend to attack Hangshan to lead the experts from Shaolin and Wudang schools to go and help, how to open one side of Wudang during the attack to let someone escape through to get help from the Shaolin temple. Also, how to do this in a manner that the strategists in the opponent camp do not figure out the plan. When Ling Hu Chong went down the mountain, all of the plans on destroying Wudang and subduing Shaolin had more or less been formed in his heart. He also thought, these chaps actually dared to toast that little kid in front of me. This debt will be settled slowly. I'm going to use them for now and not do anything. For now. Wait until Shaolin, Wudang, and Hangshan schools are destroyed. Then everyone who toasted Ling Hu Chong today won't have a good fate. Suddenly he heard Xiang Wuntian say, "Everyone hear me. Sacred Chief knows Ling Hu Chong is stubborn and doesn't take shit kissing." What does that mean? Oh, he doesn't take ass kissing. Gotcha. Sacred Chief knows Ling Hu Chong is stubborn and doesn't take ass kissing, but he still tried to persuade him with nice words. Even though Sacred Chief is a broad-minded person and loves a talented person, he has a deeper meaning in doing this that Ling Hu Chong couldn't grasp. Today, we could have destroyed Songshan, Taishan, Huashan, and Hangshan schools. Sun Moon Divine Sect, glory to the sect. The sect's disciples cried out, "Long live the Sacred Chief, unify the Jianghu." Xiang Wuntian waited until their voices died down before he continued. There's still Shaolin and Wudang schools in Wulin. They're our sect's biggest dangers. Sacred Chief wanted to use Ling Hu Chong to set up his plan in destroying Shaolin and annihilating Wudang. Sacred Chief's plan is foolproof, and he had the whole idea in his mind already. He had already anticipated that Ling Hu Chong wouldn't agree to join the sect, and sure enough, he didn't agree. So we toasted Ling Hu Chong before just as ordered by Sacred Chief. When the sect's disciples heard this, nice spin there by Xiang Wenxian. When the sect's disciples heard this, they all thought, so that's how it is. Then they all shouted, "Long live to Sacred Chief! Unify the Jianghu!" Xiang Wuntian had followed Run Wo Sing for so many years and knew what his personality was like. When the feeling of comradeship was roused in his heart, he toasted Ling Hu Chong. He knew this would make Run Wo Sing unhappy, but it didn't matter for him. But when the remaining people also toasted him, it was unavoidable that they would be killed later. So he quickly composed a speech in order to save Run Wo Sing's face and to also save old man Ji Wushi and all those people's lives. In saying this, when the people toasted Ling Hu Chong, they had not ruined Run Wo Sing's authority, and instead appeared to make him look to have foresighted it. When Run Wo Sing heard Xiang Wuntian relate it in such a way, he felt really happy and secretly thought, Left Protector Xiang has, after all, followed me for many years, so he knows what I'm thinking. But even though he knows I want to destroy Shaolin and annihilate Wudang, he still couldn't guess the method on how I'm going to do that. The strategy for this will be revealed step by step. Even he wouldn't know of the whole plan beforehand. Sacred Chief is so knowledgeable. Everything in this world is already calculated by him, Shang Guanyun shouted. What Sacred Chief wants us to do, we'll do it. We won't go wrong. Wherever Sacred Chief points us to, we'll go, Bao Daichu said. We'll go through water and fire. We won't balk at tens of thousands of death. For Sacred Chief, dying 100,000 times is better than living without purpose, Qin Weibang cried out. Another person said, Brothers, you've all said it. These last few days have been the most interesting days of our lives. We'd been able to see the Sacred Chief every day. Seeing Sacred Chief once gives us strength and refreshes our minds, just like we've practiced inner energy for 10 years. Wow, Redwall Singh really likes ass kissing. Another person said, Sacred Chief illuminates the world, making our sun-moon sect favored by the common people. Also, like the rain coming down after a long drought, everyone's happy and they're giving thanks. Another person said, Heroes from ancient times till now, the grand heroes, holy saints, none of them is able to reach the Sacred Chief. How can Confucius's martial art be as good as Sacred Chief? Marquis Guan is the measure of braveness, but how can he measure up against the Sacred Chief's wisdom? Even though Zhuge's stratagem is high, how would he fare with a sword against our Sacred Chief? The sect's disciples cheered loudly, and they called out, Confucius, Marquis Guan, Zhuge Liang, who can compare with our Sacred Chief? After our divine sect unites the Jianghu, we'll all get statues of Confucius out of the Culture Temple and all of the Guan Yu statues out of the Martial Temple, Bao Daichu said. We'll erect Sacred Chiefs' statues in their places. Long live to Sacred Chief! Long live! Shang Guanyun shouted. Our child and grandchildren, 18 generations of our descendants, all of them will follow Sacred Chief. The crowd called out at the same time, Long live to Sacred Chief, unify the Jianghu, long live, unify the Jianghu. Runwal Singh heard his subordinates flattering him endlessly. Although some of these praises were rather fantastical, he thought he could use some of them. He thought, some of these talks aren't wrong. Zhuge's, oh my god. He's buying into the bullshit. Some of these talks aren't wrong. Zhuge Liang's martial art is definitely not my match. And when he conducted, all these people are like famous people in the past. And when he conducted the 6 campaigns out of Mount Qi, he wasn't successful at all. So talking of wisdom and knowledge, is he any better than me? Guan Yu crossed 5 passes and slayed 6 generals. This is brave, but if he were to fight me alone, how could he withstand against my art of essence absorbing? Confucius only had no more than 3,000 disciples, while my subordinates number in the 30,000s. He led 3,000 disciples, running here and there, and ran out of food and couldn't do anything. I led tens of thousands of people to across the world and go wherever I wish without any problem. Confucius's ability and wisdom, when compared to Runwal Singh's, aren't that far apart. Hearing the cries of long live, unify the Jianghu, long live, unify the Jianghu, shaking the ground, the people around the mountain also started to call out. The echoes resounded throughout the mountain. Runwal Singh smugly stood up. When the sect's disciples saw him stand up, they all paid their respects by prostrating on the ground. All of a sudden, peak of the morning sun became quiet, and there wasn't the slightest noise heard. Sunshine covered Runwal Singh's face and his entire body. The majestic-looking chief of the Sun-Moon sect looked like a god. Runwal Singh laughed aloud and said, If only I could live forever, like to. When he spoke till here, he was suddenly mute. He moved his energy to say the word today, but he felt his chest contracting, and the word couldn't come out of his mouth. He pressed his chest, using his right hand, wanting to press down the blood bubbling up on his throat. but he felt dizzy, and the sunshine dazzled him. And we're done. We're done with the second to the last chapter. Yay. Whew. That was a long chapter, guys. Very long chapter. All right. What the hell happened? What is happening to him? We don't know. It ends on a cliffhanger. Hubris. All right, guys. I'm pooped. I think we're done. Thanks for listening. All right. Cheers. I will see you next time for the season finale. Yeah, we'll be done with this entire book next week. All right. So it's going to be fun. Plot twist, Run drops dead? Yeah, maybe. What's happening to him? All right, guys. Thanks for watching. I'll see you next week.